Go live. Greetings, chess players, and welcome back to the free online summer chess camp June edition. I am honored to be joined by Coach Jay all the way from Santa Clarita, California. For those of you who know a little bit about the layouts, he's up in the mountains north of Los Angeles. A little bit north of Los Angeles. But he's soon to be in Las Vegas, right, Jay?
That's right.
Tomorrow
I will be in
Las
Vegas.
Vegas.
National Open is happening.
The
first off
is
the
Women's
Open,
U.S.
Women's
Open
Championship.
Now this is different than
the
the
Women's Championship, which is an
invitational
invitational event
that happens
in St. Louis. But the Women's Open Championship, it has 48 women, and that includes all ages from 4 years old
all the way to
104 playing in this event. Now I haven't seen any 4-year-olds, but there's masters and experts all the way to 100 playing, and that is going to be on Wednesday and Thursday.
Which one, Megan?
The main event. The main national Open is happening starting Thursday, but you can choose to play a three-day schedule. So that means you play just Friday, Saturday, Sunday, or a 2-day. But also there's scholastic events going on. Those are just one-day tournaments, and so there's a lot of different things, a lot of prizes, a lot of prize money, and a lot of fun. Over 1,000 players. No problem. All right? Are we broadcasting now? Great. And yeah, for Vegas, also the chess camp JJ Lang. He's an expert. I think he's out of Chicago, maybe.
Yeah, we're broadcasting. We're just fixing the volume.
Another one of the coaches for that camp. So Vegas is going to be a lot of fun.
He's talking.
Blitz tournaments, Grandmaster camp, puzzle solving contest with puzzles that I made. Have a lot of pandemic themed puzzles and stuff like that. So that'll be a lot of fun.
Sounds like what's the weather supposed to be like in Las Vegas?
116 degrees.
Holy mackerel! 116 degrees.
We are getting a heat wave in Southern California just tomorrow, like mainly tomorrow. 109 degrees in Santa Clarita, which is near Magic Mountain here in Southern California. 109. So it is going to be extremely hot. I hope my air conditioning is working fine in my car tomorrow for the drive to Las Vegas.
Wow, so. That's really hot. You should pack a thermometer and a fold up table, and the hottest part of the day, go sit out in the sun on the sidewalk with a chessboard and play a chess game.
Well, I should go and sit out there and
live stream.
Then I can brag.
The hottest game of chess ever.
And I can brag that I didn't lose a single game because nobody would dare to come out and play me.
That's true. That's true. Yeah, I mean, you travel enough, you could probably get the coldest game of chess ever too at some point, and then just challenge people to beat you.
That's a good.
So yeah, that sounds like a lot of excitement. And outside of that, you're teaching some chess camps through the LA Park department?
Yeah, through LA Parks and Rec. I do have a total beginner class, which I don't think is for your audience, but maybe there's somebody that they know that might want to do that. And that's just going to be every Wednesday starting a week from Wednesday, 9 days from now. And that meets every Wednesday, goes for an hour. And these are all online. And anybody who joins that class, I give them access to my own website, which is a Lichess clone, and they can go in there. And I show them challenges. I also will be using Kahoot with them so that they can use that as a learning tool, and covering a lot of the stuff that's in my books, my Coach Jay's Chess Academy White through Black Belt series, but I'll be covering mainly the white belt in that 8-week class. And then I have 2 mini camps that are just 2.5 hours, 9:30 to noon. One of them is a week from Saturday, and that is a mini camp for newer players that know how to play, but maybe they don't have as much strategy. So that's a good place to get some strategy, learn all the basic checkmates, some basic openings and stuff. Then in July, I think this is the link that Megan is putting into the chat. That is a link to a camp that is more advanced, and it's going to talk about some important ideas in the opening, middle game, and end game. Go through some opening traps that everybody should know. And that's a 2.5-hour camp where I'm just going to be going, including sending the campers to my website and doing some drills. And I probably play simultaneously against some of them at some point to make sure we practice and get everybody really proficient on all the things that they should know in chess. I mean, I think in 2.5 hours, I plan on really upping their level, upping their game. So I hope a lot of people can make it to that.
Yeah, and all that information on that, Megan has the website and is putting it in the chat, so you can check that out and try and make it. The more input you get from Coach Jay, the better your chess is going to be. So if you can make any of those, do it. And also, one last thing I want to mention is I'm really impressed with this Kahoot chess product that Coach Jay has out right now. He's got 60-some videos that are free to watch on YouTube, but the way to get the most out of it is to sign up at kahootchess.com. And
it's Chess Hoots.
Chess Hoots.
So,
I'm sorry. Chesshoots.com.
Right.
I was fixing it.
You have to hit all.
And sign up at chesshoots.com and tell us about what they get from Chess Hoots.
Yeah, so with Chess Hoots, I have a bunch of series of different Chess Hoots that they can do, and they go in there, and I concentrate on a single theme with each one of them, and you can do that theme, and it might be the rook roller. You can do it at the fundamental level and take a little test on it. It has a video at the beginning. You can do the progressive level, or you can do the challenge level. And so there's 2 different ways you can approach it. You can do the fundamental level. If you're a newer player, you can do the fundamental level of all of the different Chess Hoots that I've put in there. So they'll include a video most of the time, and then they'll include the quiz, and it's a fun Kahoot quiz where you're putting things in order, you're filling in a blank sometimes, you're doing multiple choice questions, and then you can do it that way where you're doing all the fundamental ones, or and then go to progressive and then go to a challenge, wherever you want to start with that, or you can do it by theme and you can just do one after the other. So I have one called Bishops, and it talks about the power of bishops, when you can best use them, when they're not so good, the strengths and the weaknesses of them, but it goes through first and talks about the very basic part about bishops, and then a harder one, and then a harder one. And so it really challenges you. And I think everybody should learn about each one of the 6 chess pieces and really understand everything about those pieces. When are they good? When are they bad? Which pieces do they work best with? What are their most famous checkmates that each piece ever did? Things like that. And so you'll find that in Chess Hoots, which surprisingly is only $4.99 a month. It's a great product for everybody. And then we do the live Chess Hoots parties, I call them, where everybody comes in and we do it all together at one time and have a lot of fun with that. So yeah, I appreciate it. Make sure you subscribe to my YouTube channel. That always encourages me to keep those videos coming. And this end of the year has been really very, very busy for me. But now, after the National Open in Las Vegas, I'm going to get back and get some new videos up because I've been creating a lot of new content.
Awesome. I really enjoy the Chess Hoots videos because I enjoy watching other really, really good coaches teach. Even if it's the same information that I've taught many, many times, I often pick up a detail and borrow a phraseology or something from different sources. And as Jay was saying, the getting that foundation, actually starting with like the basics of how the bishop works, the rules regarding how the bishop moves, and then looking at how a light squared bishop can be useful in different kinds of situations, and then what kinds of checkmates, and then more advanced, same color and opposite color bishop endgames, things like this.
Right.
Jay does that really, really well, so you want to check out those videos. And today you gave me a little bit of a inside information that we're going to see a game by Mikhail Botvinnik. So go ahead and take it away. Yeah. Tell us what we're going to watch.
So we're going to look at this one idea of understanding which side of the board to attack on and what to do when you can find a way to distract your opponent to one side, or maybe they just find their pieces on one side, then you can cause them trouble on the other side of the board. And a lot of times that happens with pawns, that when they're over on one side of the board with the majority of their pieces, a lot of times their queen on one side of the board, you can attack on the other side of the board. Use your pawns, because pawns are great at blasting open the position. And we're going to have a look at a game, Botvinnik's most famous game that Kasparov says is like his immortal game, his evergreen game. He says it's an instant classic as soon as he played it in the Avro tournament. This was in 1938 in the Netherlands against Capablanca. Now, Botvinnik, for those of you that don't know, he was world's champion, the only one that was champion 3 different times. And we had Alyekin, who was champion, and then he lost his title to Maxoeva, who we're going to look at one of his games. And then he came back and won the title again. But then also we see it with Botvinnik. 3 times he was champion. And he was champion first by winning the tournament in 1948 after Alyekin had died in 46. So by the way, sometimes you'll see me give that trivia question. Who was champion in 1947? Nobody.
Ah, that's
Nobody
a good
was
one.
Champion in 1947.
Yeah.
And so Alyekin had died in 46. They had a tournament in 48. Botvinnik won that tournament. While he was champion, he never once won a match for the World's Championship. He had a drawn match against Bronstein, and then he lost to Smyslov, but then he had a rematch clause. He came back and beat Smyslov in the rematch, and then he lost to Mikhail Tal and came back and beat Tal in the rematch. When he lost to Petrosian, FIDE took away his rematch clause, and he was not happy about that, because that was basically the way he played. He would study all of those different things that had happened in the match, learn from it, and be prepared for the next one. So in leading up to this game, Botvinnik against Capablanca, a couple of fun pieces of trivia to make us really appreciate the game. And so I have this wonderful book that is called Botvinnik 15 Games and Their Stories. And it's written by Botvinnik, and he just he tells firsthand, that means himself, not somebody else telling the story, he tells firsthand a little story about each game. So I'm not going to review the game that he's talking about, but I think it's a great story. This is Leningrad, 1925, simultaneous exhibition. So Botvinnik says that when he was young, so I'm summarizing this first paragraph. When he was young, he got to be a strong player. My playing strength was already known to such an extent that when Capablanca, the world's champion, took advantage of a free day from Moscow International Tournament 1925 to come to Leningrad, he lived in Leningrad and he's 14 at the time, to give a simultaneous exhibition on 30 boards, the organizer of the event secured one of the boards for me. So this is a funny note. Botvinnik says, it should be mentioned here that my mother opposed my involvement with chess. What do you want? She used to ask me, to become Capablanca or something? But when she found I was really going to play Capablanca, she bought me a new brown overcoat in honor of the occasion. And so, November 20th, 1925, found me in the Leningrad Philharmonic Hall. The smaller hall was already crowded with spectators, while the exhibition hall itself was as stuffy as a bathhouse, overflowing with people. Even getting to my chair turned out to be a difficult task. But the two second category players, who were already sharing my chair, graciously accepted me into their company. Capablanca probably didn't see just who it was that he was playing for a while, since my arm kept coming out of the crowd somewhere and making the moves. My companions bombarded me with advice, but even at 14 years old, I already had firm opinions. I played my own moves. So then he goes through that game, and at the end of the game, he won against Capablanca as a 14-year-old.
Wow.
And he says, a game that neither of us need to be ashamed of. Capablanca, who was, after all, playing 30 boards simultaneously, or myself, who had only learned the game 2 years before. So Botvinnik, he was 14, almost 15 when this was played, and he had learned the game when he was 13.
Wow.
So all of you guys that are younger than 13, you have a head start over a 3-time world champion. So he says, in closing, a legend arose concerning this game, that afterward the great Cuban spoke very highly of my play. The organizer, an eyewitness, asserted that he said, I played as straight as a ruler. Later, the organizer even remembered Capablanca saying, give that lad to Cuba and he will be world champion. Botvinnik says, I don't believe any of it. Capablanca swept the pieces from the board as a gesture of resignation, and his expression was anything but pleasant. 10 years later, Kappa and I became friends. So, in that game, we see that, it sounds like Capablanca didn't have great sportsmanship in that, but you have to remember, to be a world champion, and perhaps you've seen videos of Magnus Carlsen and Bobby Fischer after they lost a game, they are not happy because they push themselves. It's everything they think about. How can I win this game? Every day they're thinking, how can I be better? And so when they lose this game that is their whole life, then it just really grabs everything. It's just so frustrating for them. And so Capablanca swept the pieces from the board and did not, in fact, say, oh, what a wonderful young man or something. So myself and Coach Chris, Coach Tortoise, we are more pleasant in that regard. I've seen Coach Chris lose a game, and he's seen me lose games, and we like to compliment our opponent and say what a wonderful job they've done, as you guys should do in your games. So, all right, let's have a look at this game. Mikhail Botvinnik, Jose Raul Capablanca, and I'm going to get to the theme of the game.
And what year was this again, Jay? 1938, you said?
38, Avro tournament. Yeah, very famous tournament. All right, so...
And is who's white, who's black?
Yeah, Botvinnik is white in this game. And the light squared bishop gets traded off. Good idea by Capablanca, right, to get rid of this bishop. This bishop is a monster on d3. Just a great place to put that bishop, aiming towards both sides. But he trades it off. And this move, I remember when I was a kid, my dad showed me this move, and I thought, horrible move. Look at it. It's blocked by both these pawns. But the idea is that it gives him the freedom to go up against these pawns. He can play these kinds of moves and open up the center, and suddenly the bishop becomes a very, very strong bishop.
Amazing, because it looks like you're turning your bishop into a new b2 pawn at the time, right? It looks really
right.
bad. And for those of you, Jay just said that his father showed him this game. Jay's father was the state chess champion of Florida. I should throw that out. His father was a very powerful chess player.
Very strong player. Yeah, it's funny, Chris, because it looks like this bishop's about to move to b4.
Yep.
So, all right, so let's continue. I want to show you guys something interesting. So this move stops the queen from being able to come out to this square. So that means that he can move his queen up and not have to worry about it. That queen would really dominate the light squares if it comes out. But it also does something else, a couple of things. First of all, it slows down the advance of the queen side pawns. He really doesn't want to push that because after the pawn captures, even though the a pawn becomes a pass pawn, it's an isolated rook pawn, and it could be an easy target. And it also gives him this possibility that the bishop could come to this square at some point and aim on that diagonal. So we don't often think about a side pawn push or rook pawn push as being a good idea, but it certainly is here. All right. So a lot of people have talked about this move, how Botvinnik offers a tempo to Capablanca, and Capablanca takes it. But what this does, this move, it's a very tempting move, right? If you're black, this move is tempting because, we get to push the pawn, we get to gain space, we attack the queen. First of all, white's not going to leave the queen there. So I don't ever want you to push that pawn thinking, maybe they'll leave the queen there. Secondly, notice what happens when this pawn pushes. This diagonal becomes a possibility for this bishop. Keeps an eye on that diagonal. But also, the main thing that I want to concentrate on is that when these pawns are attacking each other, then they have what's called tension. They're both kind of stuck there, and neither one wants to capture the other. Botvinnik certainly doesn't want to capture that pawn because after the capture back, look at that isolated c pawn. That's pretty ugly looking pawn there. And also, if Capablanca captures, then he could probably capture back this way, and the d pawn for black is isolated. So neither player wants to make the capture, but also once Capablanca pushes, it relieves the tension, and now Botvinnik doesn't have to ever worry about that capture of c takes d4, and that gives him the freedom to concentrate on another area of the board. And so when you lock up the pawn structure, you have to know that your opponent now has a little bit more freedom to cause some trouble elsewhere. And we're going to see that in the next game also. So Botvinnik retreats, and now the knight goes back. You saw that he didn't have a great future. So Capablanca had to decide if he was going to go to c7 or to b8. On c7, not a bad idea, right? He could do something like this. And you're thinking, but Coach Jay, that's a lot of moves. Well, when the pawn structure is locked, this is what we call a locked, fixed pawn structure, you have time to maneuver. So you don't want to just think about getting your pieces out quickly. You want to think about getting your pieces out correctly. And so with that locked pawn structure, it might not have been a bad idea for Capablanca to maneuver his knight all the way to g6. So he goes back here because he has an idea. He's going to put this knight on b3, and the rook will be tied down to guarding the a pawn. And so Botvinnik here hatches a plan, and a lot of people have really complimented Botvinnik and said that this was just an incredible plan. But he decides that with that center locked, and now with that queenside rook and the queenside knight, not really able to participate on the king side because the knight didn't go back to c7. It came back here. So look where it can go next. Here, and then what? I guess he could go there, but he's blocking the rook for a move. So Botvinnik plays rook a e1.
Wow.
And I know. He has this long-term vision of expanding with his e and his f pawns. When you have a pawn chain, guys, you want to attack in the direction of your pawn chain. So his ideal plan is to play e4, e5, f4, f5, f6. That would be his dream come true if he could do that. And then he could attack underneath that pawn chain. All those squares in this area over here would be owned by white. He would own these squares. And his pieces would come running over here, rooks, knights, bishop, even the bishop would retreat and cause all kinds of trouble. So that's the plan. In the meantime, Capablanca doesn't even pay any attention to Botvinnik's plan and goes about doing his thing. And the knight has now moved 3 times.
And you gotta it looks right now that Capablanca's pieces are better, or a moment ago. I mean, just
yeah, you're right. I mean, if we look at this, I mean, this rook is on an open file. Mm-hmm. This knight, both knights are on the 3rd rank. Mm-hmm. This knight is on the 2nd rank. No rooks on an open file. The bishop's blocked. That's a great observation. I'm totally stealing that for the next time I teach this class. So this lesson. So this is a really great point. It shows us that a lot of times we have potential for our pieces, and not. If you look at them for the moment, they look like they're in good squares. But then you start to think about where are they going next, what's happening next with them, and you realize, oh wow, they really don't have such a great future. Well, Capablanca has decided against this young Botvinnik, who beat him in a simul, 13 years before that he was going to beat up on him. Remember, Capablanca at this point was world champion, had been world champion already back in the 1920s. Botvinnik was going to be world champion 10 years after this game for the first time. So, all right, now it's pretty clear what he's doing, right? E4 is coming next. So this knight has on 1, 2, 3, 4. And during that time, Botvinnik has gone 1, and then 2, 3, and now guess what? 4. He plays e4. He's pushing into the center. Capablanca takes his free pawn. I hope he's happy about that. And now e5, and he's gained that space. And the queen swings over this way. Oh, if he didn't swing over that way, there was a nice little tactic, a positional or strategic tactic, which is knight here. And that offers a queen trade, and you can't take the knight because your queen would hang. Yep. And so then if the queen moved away, then the knight gets to jump into this wonderful ultimate knight out. So yeah. So if you guys haven't seen my article on the ultimate knight outpost, it's in the Chess Life Kids that is out for this month. I just got my copy today, but it has an article that I wrote in there that's called "Give Your Opponent Nightmares." And so that talks about maneuvering your knights and getting them to their best square.
Yeah, and when a knight goes to the 6th rank on an outpost, that's like a rook in the 7th rank. A rook doesn't get any better than going to the 7th usually, and a knight on an outpost in the 6th. So in this case, it's black, so that's really the 3rd rank. But that's going to be. I have to check the mailbox. Read that article.
Yeah. So in this position, though, you might notice that the black knight has a wonderful outpost, except for one little detail. He's on the side of the board. He's not in the center. If that knight had been here on d3, totally different story. Botvinnik focuses on the king side. Watch. Nothing's slowing him down. Oh, you guys remember en passant capture? So this pawn goes to block the f pawn, goes up 2, but he takes it en passant. And so now he pushes again and is just totally wrecking that kingside pawn structure. Crunch, crunch. And if he didn't find this move, the game's equal. But Botvinnik finds rook to e6 and threatening that knight, and He can't even like guard it with the king, I think, because I think he would just take it. King takes, pawn takes, discovered check.
Wow.
And here comes the queen. So he makes the trade. Now, two things just happened. This pawn is 2 squares away from promoting, and the knight's hanging. So the king has to come up and guard that. The queen gets to a more aggressive spot. And now, after Capablanca plays here, we come to a position with a really great story. And so this position, Botvinnik, he turned his attention after his World's Championship years, and even I think during his World's Championship reign, from Mikhail Tal to losing to Petrosian, he started to get involved in computers and chess. And the first ever computer chess program was written on index cards by Alan Turing, who they made a movie about being a Enigma, the code breaker. And so the idea was with these index cards that you would say, is my opponent putting me in check? Can I capture the piece? Yes or no. And so you go through the cards and answer the question, and that's what a program does. And so Botvinnik was really interested in computer programming, and he wanted to test each program that was written with the same exact problem, so that he wouldn't be comparing apples and oranges. He wanted to test that computer and say, okay, can you find the right answer? And how long does it take you to find it? And guess what? This is the position he used for 20 years to test the computers, because it's a very long variation. And so you're going to see at the end just how long it is. But what he realized was that he could play this check, and the knight can't take, and if the pawn takes, he could play this check, forking the king and the knight, and the king would have to move away to a dark square where he could take the knight with check, except for one little problem, the queen on e7. So with this queen on e7, maybe you guys can throw it into the chat. What move do you think he played now? Where do you think Botvinnik played in this position so that he could come flying up with this wonderful knight to h5 check move?
We'll take a look at the chat. As usual, YouTube's on a slight delay, so I'll click over to that screen. And again, the question is, what is white going to play to remove the guard, so to speak, the queen e7?
Right. He wants to get rid of that defender, and so yeah, he wants to get rid of that, and then throw this guy up here. I'm not sure how long of a delay.
Okay, we're getting the answers right now. It's just a few seconds. Juan Chen says bishop a3, Star Discovery, bishop a3, Zengetsu, bishop a3, Anna M, bishop a3, Michael C, bishop a3. Yep.
We got some good players out there. Yeah. So you guys would be good computer programs. So he plays bishop to a3, double exclamation point. And the reason he gets 2 exclams is because of how deep it is. Because he's going to sacrifice 2 pieces, right?
Yep.
So he gave away the bishop, now he gives away the knight, and he only gets 1 piece back. Check, check. Okay, and so now he pushes the pawn, and he's threatening mate, but his king is wide open. Will he survive the onslaught of checks? One check after the other. Will he survive this? And he had to do that calculation. Check, 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 check.
Wow.
Check. Check, check, and finally no more checks, and the great Capablanca resigned. But that's how he had to calculate all that way. Let's go ahead and do a little count just for fun. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, and 12.
Oh man!
12 moves.
And it's a king on it. It's king in the open with a queen on the board too. So you have to pay attention to all the possible checks. That is tough.
Yeah, really incredible. And Botvinnik has been praised for many years for this this whole plan that he did. So now you're like, okay, well, that's really great. That was wonderful. But what do we do with that, Coach Tay? Now what? Well, a few days ago, one of my students played against Magnus, age 11. And guess what? We're going to have a look at the game, and then I'll ask you guys about a move. So my student is white, and she's like about 1800 strength. And you might start to see a familiar pattern here.
Yep.
Oh, look at that.
Yep.
Right? And so there's a little bit of moving around. Okay, so now, which one of those bishops is better? So obviously it's the light squared bishop. Now she chose to go with queen takes, bishop takes, queen takes. But I sure did. I mean, if I think about this Botvinnik against Capablanca game, doesn't this look like a better version of that? You could go bishop takes f5, knight moves, and now it's that same knight outpost over on b3, but it's over on b3, right? It's way over there. So the rook could guard the pawn for a move and hold on to that and make black work to get it, because a lot of times you might think, oh yeah, I remember what Botvinnik did. He gave away this pawn by moving his rook away. Well, there's no reason for you to give it away easily, right? Anytime you have this kind of Botvinnik idea that I'm going to let my opponent have this pawn, that doesn't mean you have to make it easy for them. Make them spend a few moves to get it. And so I think the rook would go to a2, and he would get all of the same benefit that we saw from the other game. This bishop would retreat probably all the way back to b1 to stay out of the way of the rook, and maybe even put the queen in front and aim for a little checkmate. But then, of course, the marquee move, the thing we're looking for, is that pawn push that's going to happen soon. And so he'll play e4 with the idea of e5, and everything happens. And she could do that same exact thing that Botvinnik did. Now, by the way, you might recall that in Botvinnik's game, he didn't even have a light squared bishop. And so my student, she didn't need one either. And here she should just play e4. And white has an advantage. Next is e5, and just pushing everything forward. But if you know the classics, if you have studied the greatest games, and you can find the greatest games by just doing a search online and seeing the greatest games of chess ever played. This is listed as one of the greatest games ever played. And I mean, not this one, but the one before it. And you can see these important ideas. So yeah, she had a chance to have that same exact plan. And that's nice. When you know that a world champion had the plan, it must be one that works. All you have to do is double check the calculations and make sure that it's going to work. Okay, so what we saw was that when somebody goes to the other side of the board, you can cause trouble on, in that case, the queen side, and the king side is where you can cause trouble. And that's what happened in this game. I was playing against Tony Newhall, and I'm white in this game, and I'm playing the f4 attack against the Sicilian, a Grand Prix kind of plan. And I've decided to be pretty aggressive with my pawns, as you can see. Knight swings over to that side of the board, and I have that wonderful pawn chain, my bishop aiming underneath the pawn chain. And yes, my king does look open, but notice my opponent can't get to my king. It would be really tough for them to try to get to my king. My queen's out there. When you bring your queen out early, keep her behind your pawns. And that's what I've done. I push the pawns up first, and the queen comes out. And now he dared and took this pawn. And so this was like, when he played that move, I was like, really? This was 20 moves ago, and I can still remember what I was thinking. I was like, you can't take that pawn. Are you? There's no way you can take that pawn and survive. And so the idea is that Tony doesn't have enough pieces over here on the king side to be able to defend against that. And so luckily, I also have a hook. A hook is like a target that you can attack, as you are advancing your pawns. And so sometimes if I push a pawn, let's say I play pawn h6, my opponent could play pawn g6 to make sure we don't open the files. Or if I played, pawn to g6, then maybe he's going to play, let's see, I guess here, something like that. And so, yes, it's true I can capture that pawn, but it's not the end of the world. The bishop can move here and secure everything, and it seems like he might survive. What move do you guys think I played here? So this is white to move and break open that king side. Now, by the way, it's a 3-step process, and I will give you the clue. Those pawns, they're just in my way. My own pawns are just blocking my big pieces from being able to cause all the trouble. So
go ahead and type it in chat, guys.
Yeah, throw it in there.
And while we're waiting for the, so we're looking for what is Coach Shea gonna do to bust open the black castled king protection there? How's he gonna break through that shield? And while we're waiting for those answers to come in real fast, Jay, why is it called the Grand Prix attack?
I don't know that. Do you know it?
I don't. I'm wondering if it's because, it's like a race with your pawns down there.
That could be. So the Grand Prix is like an auto race. So it could be named after that. But I bet that there was a tournament called the Grand Prix. This is just a guess, and that it was played there because there are some openings, right, that are they were played in big tournaments, and then they got the name from either that tournament or maybe from that city or something like that. So, like the Wilkes-Barre or Wilkes-Barre, also called the Traxler, that was played by that chess team that was in Wilkes-Barre, I think it's in Ohio. And so they played it a lot, and so they would do it in correspondence matches, I think, against other teams. They would write the letters back and forth and send the moves, and so it got their name. And then there's the Cambridge Springs variation of the Queen's Gambit Decline.
Sure.
So same idea. I think there was a match between Cambridge and Springs, and they played that variation back and forth against each other. So then they called it the Cambridge Springs. So
we got a lot of F6 is the idea that's the most popular, and G6 is the second most popular. Which is it?
It is F6, and that's taking advantage of the hook. And the hook is the bishop. Because, by the way, guys, if this bishop in this position, if the bishop is back here on D8, white doesn't have a winning move. Because when the pawn pushes, it just goes push here and take, and yes, there's an open H file. Hold on, I'm getting ahead of myself. I can't hang the rook. I think if the bishop's back and the pawn pushes, I think you could probably ignore it. You could probably play bishop here and let them make the capture and be just fine with that. And so with the hook, though, with this bishop here, that means that Tony, he couldn't ignore it. He had to do something. So he captured here, and now, guess what? Yeah, G6 is next.
Yeah.
So if my opponent comes over, then I have this move, which opens up a discovery on their queen, and it threatens the rook, which I'll capture, and then I'll take here, check.
Wow.
And then my queen, yeah, so you can see death would be imminent. And so Tony took this way, but I think this gets him in even more trouble. Unfortunately, the H file is wide open, and he found a way to lose quickly. He moved his rook over, and it is a quick finish here. This is a mate in 2. Who can type in the second move of this checkmate in 2? It's a mate in 2.
Second.
I want the second.
The second move of the mate in 2. Yeah, that's I guess the Queen A4 that Tony played has really caused him a lot of trouble in this one. It never belonged over there, right?
I think Tony was traumatized, and I don't know if he ever moved his queen to the A4 square again in his tournament career. So, Tony, now, by the way, Tony and his brother used to always meet up at the National Open in Las Vegas every year. This same tournament that I'm heading to tomorrow. So it's a great tournament with a lot of tradition, and Tony would go there a lot. His brother passed away last year, rather suddenly, so it was really sad. But it's something that he'll always have that memory that he did this great event, and so that's a neat thing to do, guys, is to have great memories together. Coach Chris and I have some really fond memories of being at my father-in-law's house in San Francisco and watching the train go around the tracks, right, Coach Chris?
Yep.
So, and working different camps together up in Northern California, down in Southern California. So having experiences with people is what it's all about. It's a fun thing.
Chess, you meet just a lot of people. It's a big community, and the interesting thing about chess is everybody in the chess community has chess in common. But other than that, it's 100% diverse community. So you can have people that are surgeons and people that are custodians, and they're playing at the same chess event, and they're good friends. It's really, really cool. By the way, both are extremely important jobs, surgeons and custodians. Yeah.
That's for sure, and I think chess helps us realize that we all are in this together, and so that's a really nice thing. It helps us. I think that if everybody played chess, all of our countries will get along better too, because you would play a lot internationally online, and then whenever there was any dispute between our country and, say, India or and Saudi Arabia or Venezuela or whatever, then a lot of people would be friends, and they'd say, hey, let's work this out, because after all, we're friends.
Yep.
And so I think chess could be something to really help out with that. And we've seen that. Like Benjamin Franklin, he was a great diplomat for the United States, an ambassador, and he was a huge chess player, and he would play chess in Europe with all of the different ambassadors and the people from all the different countries there that were in politics.
Yeah, what was that famous cafe in Paris? It's
the Café de Regence.
There you go. Thank you. Yeah. Everybody hung out at this one famous cafe. The great impressionistic painters, the great chess players. We got a lot of Queen H7 and Queen H6 as the second move checkmate. So we're about evenly divided.
I think the important thing for us to remember is the escape square, right? Mm-hmm. Is that escape square for the king after your initial check. And so that should help us to realize which one of these two is correct. Only one of those squares will guard the F8 square. And, drum roll please. Nothing? I thought you were a musician. Drum roll, please. No drum roll from Coach Chris. Yep. And then checkmate. So that
beautiful.
Poor Tony opened his king up, and in I came. So
you know what's interesting about these two games you showed us? You've shown us three, but this one and the Botvinnik game. In the Botvinnik game, the Dark Bishop was just terrible until it came time to sacrifice itself. And in this game, the Dark Bishop never moved until it was, and it became great in its support of the Queen. So, interesting.
Yeah, underneath that pawn chain, that was ready to help out a lot there. Mm-hmm. Yeah, good point. Okay, so Alexander Kotov wrote a book called Think Like a Grandmaster.
Excellent book.
And
yeah.
Yeah, it was a really revolutionary book, because a lot of people just thought when you play a game of chess that you just sit down and you push up your king's pawn and you move your knight out, and then when your opponent does something, what are they attacking? Okay, so I'll just defend that. Oh, they're not attacking anything. I'll go after their king and try to checkmate them. But the way a grandmaster thinks is that they have candidate moves, and they're always thinking about different ideas and which direction they'll go. And Alexander Kotov, in his book, Think Like a Grandmaster, talked about the idea of having a tree of analysis. And saying, okay, if I go in this plan, what's going to happen? If I go there, what can my opponent do? And, it's important to point out that grandmasters are pessimistic calculators and pessimistic thinkers. That means, a pessimist is somebody who looks at a glass and they say, oh, this glass of iced tea that you have, Coach Jay, it's almost, it's more than halfway gone. Poor Coach Jay. Well, I look at it and I say, oh, lucky me, I still have some iced tea to drink. Good. And so a pessimistic thinker in chess is saying, okay, if I go here, what's wrong with it? Yeah, this, and that. What if I go here? What's wrong with that? And they end up picking their move based on the one that has the least things wrong with it, basically, a lot of times. And so, and that's, masters do that. And lower players, I'm an expert, I am an optimist, but I am always trying to find the thing that's wrong with my moves, is that I look at it and say, okay, oh, I love this move because it gets my rook on an open file. I love this move because I can create a passed pawn. And so the grandmasters are doing that idea to always find what's wrong with their moves. And that's one of the things mentioned in Think Like a Grandmaster. But he also talks about comparing your pieces and what the plans are that you can do when you have pieces of different value. And by that, I don't mean like a rook is a different value than a knight. I mean the same kind of pieces, but one stronger than the other. A good bishop, an outpost knight, that kind of thing. All right, so right here in the very beginning of the game, our hero, Alexander Kadov, who's playing against Mark Taimanov, and you might know Mark Taimanov's name. He was the one that lost to Fischer in 1971, 6-0. He was then followed by Bent Larsen losing 6-0 on Fischer's journey towards winning the World's Championship in 1972, the next year, against Boris Spassky. But here Taimanov, a young man, is up against Kadov, and Kadov has just played pawn to b5, and the knight goes out to the side of the board. And guess what? That knight, when it finally does move back to the d file, about 30 moves from now, at that stage, this knight will have moved about 10 times and never made it back to the center. And when it makes it back to the center, it's the final mistake, and he loses the game. And so you're like, what the heck? So Kadov's idea, he says that he looks at the pieces at this point and says, okay, my queen and black's queen, they're about the same. My rooks and my opponent's rooks, well, they're gonna fight over the e file. They're about the same. My kingside knight, his kingside knight, yeah, about the same. Black's bishops are a little better than mine, right? The black bishops have a little bit more scope, but I have a strong fianchetto bishop. And this guy, well, guess what? He has the possibility to aim out in this direction. But compare the queenside knights, and that's where I'm winning. So there's a couple different things when there's a weak piece like this. First of all, you could target it, move the bishop, but look, that takes 4 moves to get lined up to go after that knight, and 1 move to guard it enough times that it's going to be safe. So that doesn't seem to work. So he says, instead of trying to trap and win that knight, I am going to attack the other side of the board. And basically, I'm going to have more pieces attacking than my opponent has defending. Makes sense, right? The knight's stuck over here. Watch what he does. First of all, the queenside knight starts moving over. Oh, look at that. Botvinnik rook. That rook from rook A to E1 coming over. The bishop retreats. So 3 moves in a row. He moved the knight to the center, the rook to the center, and the bishop moves to a more active square. And the rooks come off the board. And the reason he trades is because he basically feels like he's ahead, right? He has 4 minor pieces that can attack on the king side, and black only has 3 that can defend it. So he's taken that idea, and he certainly doesn't want to open up this position for Taimanov, and so he supports his pawn instead. And the queen has to retreat back in this direction so that he can push the pawn and still have this guy guarded, and then move the knight back. That's what his plan is. Yuck. And here go the white pieces just charging forward onto this side of the board. The queen takes a step backwards. And she comes flying out. And the bishop's out. Now look at all the white pieces. They definitely outnumber the black ones. Okay, here goes the black knight on its start of its journey to try to get in the action. The queen steps back for a move and convinces him to bring his queen in there too. Now you're thinking, oh, this looks dangerous. No, it doesn't. This king is totally safe, right? Totally safe. Look where the knight has to go. Ugh, horrible. Oh, my goodness. Again, the knight is bouncing around. Okay, so now he gets a pretty clever idea. He says, I am going to sacrifice. When you take here, I am going to take this, you take, I'll take, then I'll take this with something, and I'll have 2 passed pawns. And so he says, why should I give you any counterplay? I'm winning this. So he just goes out on the attack. Check, big deal. He doesn't care about that check. The knight comes to B1. Yes, this knight is going everywhere. Let's see, he started here, then he went here, then he went there, here, here, and now there. Wow. Woo, go knight. The bishop comes back to attack the queen. The knight blocks. It's his final move. White makes a move, and then black resigns. And the cool thing is that everything's been concentrating on attacking this king over here. That has forced black to make compromising moves that were not good for his position. And now he's blocked the attack. Anytime you block a check or block an attack, you're pinning your piece. And what do we do when you have a pin against somebody? So I'll let you guys throw that into the chat. This will be the final move for Alexander Kotov against Mark Taimanov.
Okay, let's see what what you guys come up with. Both these guys, by the way, I'm fans of both these chess players. I have the book that Kotov wrote, Think Like a Grandmaster, and what I do with my advanced students is I find a really interesting position, a complicated position, and I give them a set amount of time to actually draw the tree. And then, of course, Mark Taimanov, I have several of his books. He ended up being a really famous and great chess teacher.
Now, Taimanov was also a concert pianist.
Mm-hmm.
So he was a great pianist, and you know, do you know which world champion was a great baritone singer?
Which world champion was a great? Hang on one second.
1950s.
Yeah, I'm gonna go with Petrosian, maybe.
Oh, close. Smyslov.
Smyslov was okay.
Yeah, so Smyslov was a great singer. As a matter of fact, a lot of times at the Olympiad, he would sing the national anthem for his country.
Wow!
Like
what an honor.
If they won the gold or something like that.
Yeah.
So at that time it was USSR, and would sing their anthem. So he was a great singer.
And what modern day country was Vasily Smyslov from?
I guess that would it be Russia?
Might be. It might be one of the smaller Soviet states too. We'll have to look that up. Yeah.
Could have been.
Some of these questions that come to my mind. Yeah. Whenever I'm with Jay, he has such a knowledge of chess history that if one of these questions crosses my mind, I go ahead and ask it.
It's always fun to get to talk together.
Yeah.
Okay.
Queen E2 is what people are suggesting.
Woohoo! Oh my goodness, you guys are brilliant.
Yep.
So yeah, Queen E2 and resigns because the knight is falling, and so, but yeah, it's an important lesson. The most important lessons that we got from this game are that if your opponent has a piece stuck on the side of the board, one idea is to shift everything to the other side and go on an all-out attack because they have not enough defenders. You have more defenders. But then also, at the very end, we get this lesson that it doesn't matter how you win. So when you have your pieces over here, you don't have to checkmate them. That's not how you have to win. And when black makes this move, the best move on the board is to retreat your queen to this unassuming square. It looks like you're just going backwards, and that wins the game. That closes the deal. So, wow, what a pleasure!
What a wonderful lesson, and yeah, just absolutely fantastic. Before I let you go, because I know you're very busy, Jay, and you're on your way to Las Vegas out the door, tell us again, real fast, how about your Chess Kahoot project.
Yeah, so the Chess Hoots is chess and then hoot like an owl, HOOT. Z is the way you can spell it, but if you go to Chess Hoot or Chess Hoots with an S, they'll redirect you to chesshoots.com. And on that site, there's a lot of sample Kahoots that you can try out. So check those out, try those out, see how you like them. And then for just $5 a month, you can subscribe and get all of the ones that are in the library. And there's going to be new ones coming, and also it gets you into my once a month Chess Kahoot party where we bring everybody together and have a party, and so we're all online at the same time battling against each other, and I do 3 Kahoots of 3 different levels, and that's just $4.99 a month. So yep. I hope you guys check that out, and maybe I'll see some of you guys in my my class on Saturday, July 24th, which is an advanced techniques class, 2.5 hours on that day, and it's and you know, I try to make it nice and affordable too. So that's through the LA County, and I think that link is in your YouTube chat.
I think it is, but you know what? When you get a chance, Jay, go ahead and send me the description for your class on Saturday the 24th, and I'll go ahead and put it in a blog post on dailychessmusings.com. So all your fans over here learn about that. Thank you so much, Coach Shea. This was a fantastic lesson. And you have a safe and fun time in Las Vegas, my friend.
All right, Chris, I'm looking forward to seeing you soon. Take care, and love to your family.
Bye.
Bye, everybody. Take care.
And thank you so much, everybody, for participating in the free online summer chess camp, our June edition. It got kicked off really, really well. If you had any difficulties today, remember you can just send us an email, dailychessmusings@gmail.com, and make sure you remember to subscribe to this YouTube channel, because I'm going to be doing some special events that I haven't even talked about yet. So make sure you do that, and I will see you guys tomorrow at 12:30 p.m. Pacific time. Go ahead and give it a like and subscribe. Talk to you later.